He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, and in the end he was left to die alone. Have you ever heard of someone who gave their entire life in silence, enduring pain, hunger, and fatigue, all for a purpose that wasn't even theirs? From someone who never complained even when the world around them turned their back? This is more than a sob story. It's a muffled cry of ignored fidelity. And the protagonist? Not a famous hero. He is not a man of great achievements. It's just an ox. Yes, an ox, but not just any ox. This animal, marked by scars and empty looks, represents thousands of lives that were useful, until the moment they stopped being so. So, what's left? Oblivion, the ingratitude, the abandonment. He didn't have a famous name, but he had a history. It had soul, and he had a mission: to serve his boss day after day without fail, without stopping, without questioning. Since he was young, he pulled a cart, plowed land, faced the scorching sun, rain, mud, and the indifferent gaze of those who should take care of him. Never asked for anything. It just did. It gave strength. It made me sweat. He gave everything, until the moment came when he had nothing left to give. And what happened when he stopped being useful? It was discarded as something old, like a rag, as if it had never existed. It's cruel, but it's real. This story is not a metaphor. It is real life. And it exposes the darkest side of the human condition, the ease with which we turn our backs on those who have served us in silence. How many of us have seen this scene in other contexts? With parents, with grandparents, with forgotten workers. Ingratitude is an open wound in the soul of humanity. And this leads us to a question that may hurt more than the story itself. Is it worth being faithful when no one remembers you at the end? Does silent sacrifice have value if it does not generate applause or recognition? This story will make you rethink what loyalty, love, and sacrifice mean. But before I tell you everything, I want you to ask yourself, if it were you in his place, if your efforts were ignored, your history erased, your loyalty betrayed, could you handle it? The pain of being forgotten, even though you gave your all, is the thread that weaves this story together. A story that will leave an impression on you. And it hasn't even started yet. But this story needs to be told. And more than that, it needs to be felt. Because perhaps, by remembering this ox, we will also begin to see other forgotten stories around us. Maybe this video isn't just about an animal left behind, but about everyone who, like him, was useful until their last breath, and then discarded without a look of gratitude. If this touched you, comment below. This needs to change. Let's turn this story into a consciousness movement. Let's prove that there are still people who feel, who value, who don't forget. Your comment may be small, but it resonates big. It shows that you care, and that stories like this will no longer pass in silence. Press like now, not by algorithm, but to show that you listened, that you felt, that you are not indifferent. And if this kind of truth touches you, if you believe that real and sad stories also have the power to transform, subscribe to the channel. Here, we give voice to what the world insists on keeping quiet. Now take a deep breath, because the next part is going to hurt even more. Let's go back in time and learn about the trajectory of those who served with their entire body, until they had nothing left to give. He was born under the scorching sun, in a forgotten place, where the earth cracked and the sigh of life seemed heavier than birdsong. Still a puppy, staggering among ants and dry logs, he experienced what few have witnessed: waiting. The hope that whoever created it would see it not only as a tool, but as part of something bigger. But from an early age he learned that his value would not be in the applause, but in the sweat that no one would see, in the burden that no one would remember, in the loyalty that no one would recognize. When he was introduced to work, his world changed. The ox, yes, let's call him that. Because this story is not about a human hero, but about a being who was faithful to the end and was still forgotten. Started pulling carts, plowing land, carrying bags, bearing the weight of routine as if it were the only way to exist. He understood, perhaps without words, that his mission was to serve. And it served. No complaining. Without expecting a reward. Without making a fuss. Just a constant presence. A tireless companion. The difficult childhood of those who raised him was reflected in him. The boss, a simple man with calloused hands, with big promises and little recognition, saw in that ox not only strength, but dedication, and the ox responded in kind, day after day, With his hooves sinking into the mud or his feet firm on the dry earth, he persisted. And so, little by little, he built silent achievements, those that don't make headlines, that don't appear on social media, but which transform lives. He helped entire communities. Someone planted cassava, and he plowed the soil. Someone was harvesting coffee, and he was carrying the heavy bag. Someone needed shade in the late afternoon, and he would lie down, ready to rest next to them, always there. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't demand applause. He didn't ask, "Who will remind me?" He just did it, and he did well. There was a moment when he became part of the farm narrative, or rather, farm life, like an invisible pillar. The boss who witnessed droughts, rains, cycles of fire and plenty counted on him. He counted on the constancy that the world does not recognize. When the tractors broke down, when the paths became impassable, the ox was there. When the harvest was late, when the rain was merciless, the ox persisted. And more than that, he sustained the silence around him, absorbed the weight that no one saw, the ingratitude that no one thought about, loyalty, fidelity, values that many proclaim and few live. He lived them without knowing that living was dangerous. He lived them because he simply saw no other choice. And in this life, he made himself relevant to those who depended on him, but invisible to those who only saw its usefulness. He didn't need the spotlight. He needed respect. He did not ask for recognition. I was just waiting for a look, and not even that arrived. His silent achievements accumulated, day after day, year after year, like invisible marks on the farm's trajectory. He helped a neighbor who lost his horse, pulled the cart of whoever was in trouble. He helped the community clear the path after a flood, standing alongside others. He helped with loading, harvesting, transportation. He helped like few others, but he was not celebrated. He helped as if it were part of a greater purpose, but no one told that story. His story was left in the shadows, and in the shadows there are usually memories that no one wants to remember. And over time, he became a reference, without anyone saying so. When the boss appeared in the neighborhood, someone would say, "That ox, he's still going strong." And the boss, proud, thought, "He saved me more than once." But inside, the ox didn't think about saving himself. He thought about walking, walk forward, walk to serve, walk despite the pain, walking despite neglect. Imagine this. The man, the boss, had a family, dreams, worries, late bills, children to feed, hopes and fears. This man depended on something, someone, who almost never got a thank you. And that ox gave everything. Not just strength, gave presence. Not just presence, gave soul. With every step, every pull, every splash of mud, he left a trail of sacrifice. And in every drop of sweat, he blessed without knowing it. He sustained without wanting anything in return. And that's where the heart sinks the most. What happens when the usefulness runs out? What happens when the ox, which once carried sacks, which once pulled carts, which once was essential, finds itself with no load to pull, no land to plow, no service to provide? The silent betrayal of ingratitude announces itself. Abandonment disguised as silence approaches. But before that part comes, let's look back at that peak period. At that time when, even though he was invisible, he was the hero no one saw. Was he faithful because he had no other option? Or because he did? Perhaps because fidelity was the only legacy he knew. Maybe because the ox saw something in his boss that many humans don't see. Tacit recognition. And the boss? He recognized it, but didn't speak. He believed that he who works with sweat and hooves does not need speech. He believed that service speaks for itself. And the ox spoke, loud enough for anyone who wanted to hear, silent enough for the story not to be celebrated. On foggy mornings, on sunny afternoons, on afternoons when the wind blew dry, he was there, pulled, Arava. I walked. And at the end of the journey you might think, today I did what I was supposed to do. And tomorrow, I'll do it again. He didn't preach visibility. I wasn't looking for applause. But he was building something bigger than himself, a legacy of loyalty. In the community there was a lady who always said, "That ox works as if it were people." And she, in a small gesture, gave him a straw and left it in the shade for him to rest. It was little, but it was the only gesture he had made so far. The ox never asked for affection, but at that moment, he felt seen, for a second, and the second became a minute. the minute became a memory. And remembrance, when fueled by respect, becomes honor. You're watching. How many times have you been the bull in this real-life story? How many times have you given everything, and the world kept spinning as if you didn't exist? How many times has your sacrifice been swallowed by the routine of others? This video is for you. This story is for you. Because if real life is made of episodes hidden, of tears without a lens, of applause that never came, this story shows that there is dignity even in the erased, honor even in the anonymous. And even in this silent rise, there were subtle signs that something was not right. Recognition was lacking. The boss would say thanks from time to time, but it was rare. People passed by, looked, ignored. The ox remained firm. And why did he continue? Because he had been educated to continue. Because perhaps he believed that the world does not turn its back on those who continue to serve. Because maybe, deep down, he trusted whoever had welcomed him, until that trust became a heavy veil. He made life choices that almost no one makes. They chose him to serve. He accepted. He adapted. He turned it into meaning. And in doing, in delivering, in walking, he became a symbol, not official, but genuine, of silent sacrifice. And the most impressive thing, he helped entire communities build dreams. He carried more than weights, carried hope. Sometimes when the rain fell heavily and the boss's children were left without transportation to school, he was the one who pulled the cart. No complaining. Without thinking, what about me? He just did it. And as he saw the simple smiles of those children, he perhaps understood that their value went beyond the farm. His value touched lives. Its value was an invisible link that united those who had much with those who had little. And in that bond, he persisted. Day after day, year after year, he established a reputation that never appears on business cards. He became indispensable, but not irreplaceable, because for the system, no one is irreplaceable. And yet, he remained. Staying in real life is already an act of courage. Persisting, even when invisible, is already a silent revolution. And the most painful thing, this silent ascension creates an internal memory, which no one feeds, which no one recognizes, but which weighs heavily. That's heavy in the gravel, that's heavy in the sweat, that's heavy in the silence. And the ox, even without a name, even without a voice, felt this weight. But he didn't stop walking. He never stopped serving. He never stopped believing, perhaps, that one day the world would see. But the world often doesn't see it. The world goes on. The wheel turns. The harvest comes and goes. The seasons change. The sun rises, sets, and the ox there. At the end of the day, lying down, eyes tired, I breathed deeply. Maybe he remembered the times when he was still useful. Maybe you thought, I still am. But who listened? He never complained. Not because he was strong, although he was, but because he believed that serving was his mission. And mission does not question. Mission delivery. And memoryless delivery requires even more strength. Because giving in and being forgotten is a wound of silence. It's a pain that doesn't scream, but gnaws. And he endured it. Meanwhile, the communities he helped grew. Harvests progressed. The hands that were shaking before now held firm. The children who had been waiting before were now smiling. And he, raised to silent servitude, was part of it. It was the invisible pillar. It was the ox that never stopped helping. And he never expected applause. You who are here now looking at the screen, feeling this story, think, how many times have you recognized this silent force in your life? How many times have you let someone be that bull for you, and then turned your back? If you feel this is wrong, if you believe that faithfulness, loyalty, sacrifice need to be recognized, stay with me until the end of this video. Because now, more than listening, let's act. Now, more than regretting, let's value it. And you can start in the comment. Right there. I see you. Right. You are not alone. Right. I will change this with you. Leave your like as a vote of honor for those who serve in silence. And sign up so that this voice never stops echoing. But before we enter the next chapter, where the tragedy begins, where abandonment sets in, take a deep breath. Get ready, because the story will hurt. And it is this pain that will open your eyes. And then came the day when nothing made sense anymore. The routine continued. The hooves still stepped on the beaten earth, the sweat still came down. But the world was changing, without him fully realizing it. At this point, the ox, which had previously been a constant, indispensable presence, invisible in recognition but visible in service, began to feel the tremor that something bigger was breaking. The turnaround, the fall, the moment the world turned its back. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to find out that loyalty doesn't guarantee gratitude, sacrifice doesn't guarantee remembrance, real life doesn't guarantee justice. On that foggy morning, when the master left early, with his worn hat and worry on his face, the ox pulled the cart as always, still believing that serving was the same as being seen. But something different hovered in the air. Quick glances, furtive whispers, promises that were never fulfilled. The new machine arrived, a shiny tractor, metallic noise. In the sound of the engine there was a decision that the ox could not. Heard him. He still plowed, still worked, still strived, thinking that there was his place. But no one noticed him anymore. The lever was changed, the tractor took over the heavy work. The bags were no longer resting on its back. The loads were redirected. He was replaced in use, underestimated in value. And in the solemnity of usefulness, silent betrayal appears, contempt. He was still there, standing still, waiting for orders, following the same paths as before, waiting for, let's go, for, I need you, for thank you, for, don't go away. But nothing came. The boss passed him, glanced at him, and continued. The people on the farm talked about the tractor, about the economy, about progress, and when they looked at the ox, it was as if they saw a piece of the past, something that no longer fit. The ox felt emptiness. The ox, which was the silent foundation, became the skeleton of a story that no one wanted to tell anymore. Loneliness began to invade every step. Before, the ox had the company of other animals, of people who came to seek help, of the routine that was repeated with purpose. Now he walked alone in the late afternoon, tired hooves, chin hanging, eyes dull. The sound of the tractor resounded in the field. The tractor moved land, harvested, transported, and the ox remained behind, seeing shadows of itself. Ingratitude turned into absolute silence. And silence, for someone who has always worked so hard, weighs more than the weight of the loads. As if the exclusion was not enough, the disease appeared. The joints became inflamed. The steps became slow. The ox limped. Before, strength seemed inexhaustible. Now every movement required effort. The tired carcass, the marked ribs, the opaque fur. Did anyone notice? Probably not. The boss noticed, but he had a new tractor to replace it. The community saw it, but it was busy with the news, with the machines, with the quick results. And the ox, who had always been faithful to the end, even without recognition, now faced abandonment. The abandonment of those who bet on him, those who counted on him, those who benefited from his sacrifice. He stopped pulling. One day, it stopped. The cart remained motionless. The land was not plowed. The sun set, and the ox remained there, motionless, as if waiting for an order that would not come. And no one came. The boss looked from afar, but turned away. The workers passed, looked, and avoided. The ox, which so many times saved the harvest, which so many times participated in the reconstruction, in the hope, was now an obstacle, and he was pushed to the corner of the farm, in the shadow of the new building, at the end of the yard. It's no longer useful, they said in a whisper. It's going to pull over there until, and the until never arrived. Ingratitude took the form of forgetfulness. The ox was no longer part of us. It became them. He watched the movement of people, the harvest festival, the smiles of children without anyone remembering that he had helped to make everything possible. He became invisible amidst the success of others, invisible and tired, invisible and sick, invisible and abandoned. He who dedicated his life now counted the days, counted the steps he could no longer take, counted the silences that came after. And in every silence there was a question: why? When the ox tried to get up in the morning, his knees could no longer support him. He let out a faint moo, and if anyone heard it, no one answered. He stretched his neck, waited for a helping hand, a straw, a shadow, a minimal gesture of recognition, and he stayed. He waited. The last time the boss touched him was to push him away. Stay there. he said in a briefly mechanical tone. "It doesn't bother you." The ox looked where the carts were no longer passing, where he was no longer called. The landscape seemed emptier. The sky seemed heavier. The wind that previously brought him a thread of hope now seemed to bring the lament of ingratitude. And the ox remembered all the mornings he left before the sun, all the afternoons he returned with his body exhausted, all the nights he asked for nothing. He remembered the sweat, the marks, the mud, the sun, the rain, the dirt. He remembered who depended on him. He remembered who smiled because of him. And now he remembered who forgot him. It was a memory that hurt more than the illness. It was a memory that burned brighter than the midday sun. And he couldn't complain, because complaining didn't change anything. And he needed to hold on. That afternoon he tried to walk to the water fountain, but the part of the path that he walked easily before now seemed like a mountain. The tractor radiated its noise nearby, with each metallic click a reminder that the world had changed without it. He stopped. He closed his eyes. And for a second, the light of the good times flashed before his eyes. The boss coming to silently thank him. The neighbor coming to offer shade. The child laughing in the wagon seat. All of them memories. And then darkness. And he stood there, breathing world. The heavy chest. The scarred soul. The abandonment culminated in a final, silent moment. The ox made one last request, or at least something that resembled a request. He approached his boss and bowed his head, not out of command, but out of adoration. He waited for a word, a touch, a good job, a thank you, something human. He received a look of pity. The boss turned and left. The new machine was waiting. The ox stayed, and it stayed, and the day turned into night. The night did not bring rest as before. I brought a souvenir. It brought veiled regret. It brought the bitter feeling that having been faithful does not protect against loneliness. And there, in the forgotten corner of the farm, the ox sighed. The sigh of someone who gave everything and had nothing more to give. The sigh of someone who was useful until the end, and the world forgot. And in the silence that followed, the sound of a broken heart echoed on the dry gravel. And no one listened. You may have just seen me here talking about this ox, but behind it there could be thousands of human stories. Workers who were replaced, forgotten, parents who were left behind, mothers who were ignored, friends who have been betrayed, lives that were sacrificed and abandoned. His story is a real metaphor. It's a mirror that shows how much our society values the new, the shiny, the fast, and discards the faithful, the constant, the silent. And real life hurts because it doesn't teach that loyalty generates recognition. She teaches that loyalty requires courage, and courage often stands alone. And if you're feeling that weight right now, if you're recognizing the bull of the story in someone in your life or in yourself, then this moment calls for something new. Perception. Realizing that the world has turned its back, and that abandonment is an invisible choice. Realizing that silent sacrifice deserves to be seen. Realize that ingratitude is a wound that does not heal on its own. And if no one came to recognize it, this video is here to recognize it for you, to give voice to what the world has forgotten, and to, together, change this. So let this sad soundtrack, even in your mind, now accompany the silence of this ox. Imagine the scene. The sun sets, shadows lengthen, the tractor silences, the birds retire, and it remains. And at the end of the video, you will reflect, how much did it cost him? How much did it cost to be faithful to the end? And how much did it cost for the world to forget him? If you believe that fidelity, sacrifice, and loyalty should not be ignored, and that the sad stories that few tell deserve to be remembered, leave in the comments, "I will no longer turn my back," or "I recognize your sacrifice." Right, you are not forgotten. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. And subscribe to the channel and press like so that the voice of the forgotten is heard. Because together we can change the destiny of the stories left behind. Is he gone? Not exactly. The ox's body, now tired and marked, still remains on the farm, on the banks of a path that is rarely traveled. But what really remains is not the body. It is the invisible legacy. Lives he changed, eyes he opened, hearts he touched, even if no one will write his name on a plaque of honor. The united harvest from before, the boy who smiled because the cart arrived, the neighbor who rested in the shade because he was there. All of this remains as the silent fruit of a fidelity that never required applause. This story of sacrifice, of surrender without recognition, of ignored loyalty, it does not end here. It continues in the flame that it lit in others. The memory that there were hands, or hooves, that helped without questioning, that served without expecting a return, that remained even when the world turned its back. Because the value, in fact, is not in the applause, but in the impact that spreads out of sight, away from the spotlight, in the simple act of having done good, even if in silence. And what was left after this ox, this faithful farm companion? Something bigger than your own sweat remained. What remained was a community that learned that it never wants to forget. There was a lesson for those watching, that loyalty, sacrifice, silent love should not be wasted, should not be left to be forgotten. There was a wound, yes, a wound of ingratitude, but there was also an opportunity for transformation. The ox that was forgotten, that was left aside, now becomes a symbol of change, symbol of what we can do differently, symbol that we can value, recognize, honor while it is still happening, while we are still together. You who are watching this video, think with me. Are we valuing the right people while they are still among us? Aren't we wasting loyalty, ignoring sacrifices, turning our backs on those who were by our side in dark moments? The story of this ox is a metaphor, a powerful one, for every worker who helped, for every person who stayed, for every soul who served and didn't care, left. It is a call to see the value in the invisible, to reach out before the shadow becomes silence. It is an invitation for us to be part of what remains, which is not late memory, but recognition now. The marks left, the footprints in the earth, the ruts of the cart, the mornings when he rose to the sun without command, the afternoons when he waited and no one called. All of this is there as a living memory. Even if no one speaks his name, what he did echoes in the lives that continued. In that child who grew up and now takes care of the farm with respect. That lady who now always offers fresh water to the tired animal. In that boss who, perhaps too late, understood that serving also needs to be seen. The invisible legacy is stronger than public recognition because it is installed in everyday life, in subtle changes, in the small gesture that says, "I saw you." And this legacy confronts us. Real life doesn't wait to give the trophy. It demands attention now. The silent sacrifice will not be remembered if we continue to ignore it. Ingratitude is a shadow that grows when no one turns on the light of gratitude. And we have the light in our hands. We have the chance to transform this repeated destiny. Because when someone was faithful to the end and the world forgot, the story does not end in oblivion. The story ends in awakening. In late recognition? Perhaps. But better now. In the comment you leave. In the thank you you give. In the look you return. If you feel this narrative, if the pain of this forgotten loyalty, of this ox that carried the world on its back and no one stepped on to look at reaches your chest, then do something. Recognize it now. Appreciate it now. Say in the comments, "I see you," or "Your sacrifice was not in vain." Write this because every word helps heal the memory of the forgotten. Leave a like as a sign of respect. Subscribe, because here we are going to give a voice to those who had no voice. And share so more people see that invisible sacrifices matter. And remember, what we are left with, what is left, is not abandonment, but the possibility of change. The possibility that if we do things differently, other stories of ignored loyalty will not just become sad memories, they will become monuments of recognition in life. Because maybe the ox never heard "thank you," but we can make him listen. And we can do this for all those who are still waiting.